namely what we want to fight, probably, because there are no models of what the attackers want to do. Because if you want to actually fight crime, and not simply to put people in jail, you have to create policies or create laws that actually deter the crime. Because if you simply say, well, if you break into a computer, or if you own some types of hacking tools, in some cases, you may end up in jail. Well, that's of course an approach to the problem. You broke the law, you end up in jail. But is this enough to combat the real problem caused by cyber attackers, by real cyber attackers? Probably not. Probably the way to deter some types of cyber attacks has more to do with trying to understand how they are going, for instance, to launder the money they got from renting a botnet, than having to do with disinfecting the botnet itself. If you can cut off the money, or if you can make it more difficult to create money out of such an attack, you will deter the attacker, instead of just putting in jail some guys that probably don't have anything to do with that. And this is testimonied also in the United States by a number of different investments of the Department of Homeland Security that don't really attract our attention as mostly Europeans. Are there any Americans in this room? Okay, happy Thanksgiving, anyone? Because we carefully chose the dates of this conference to be coincident with Thanksgiving. We are sorry, guys. Today, there's a number of observation points for cybercrime. They're all good efforts. I repeat it because I got named for a similar run of this talk before. They are all excellent activities. What I will do right now is just to look at them, see what's good with them, and see what are the lacking points, which are not lacking in a negative way, they are just not there. Okay, so first one is Atlas. Atlas is an excellent job by Arbor Networks. Arbor claims that it monitors more than 70% of the routed address space on the internet because their products are used by carriers. So of course this is debatable because it's difficult to say where you are monitoring what, but still it's a good observation point without doubt. Basically Atlas uses the unused address spaces as darknet. So a darknet is a large portion of the address space which is routed, which is reachable, but which is not used, so you shouldn't see any traffic going there. There's a public portal, which is atlas.arbor.net, and they use geolocation of attacks, they have the usual top of sources, top exploits stuff running around. And they also aggregate some data from different sources because their platforms cannot alone generate data, for instance, capturing attacks, actually. Because if you use a darknet, that's not reachable, so the attacker will just send a packet, and then you will not get a packet back. So basically you will see the backscatter of attacks, basically, but not the attacks themselves. So you need also honeypots, you need also other types of logs in order to understand what's happening. And there's a group of people, the AZERT of Arbor, who is analyzing data. The problem, it's not the problem actually, it's their business, is to use this data to push updates to their customers. So if you are a customer of Arbor, you get access to the whole of the data, to the analysis, and so on and so forth. If you're not a customer, you get interesting write-ups on the AZERT blog, but you don't get the real data. So this is normal. It's something done by a company, so it's got to be business-oriented. The same goes for DeepSight. DeepSight is Symantec's threat management system, which which basically aggregates all the records from the Symantec sources and firewall logs, IDS logs that they have in their managed services around the world. And if you aggregate also the logs from antivirus clients and so on and so forth, this amounts to more than 100 million clients around. It's a huge set of data, which of course provided to Symantec Labs the capability of analyzing the threats. Problem is, once again, their business model is to provide this information to their paying customer. It's not information for the public or for the research community, unless they get to do a write-up afterwards. But having been working with them, it's more things that they keep proprietary inside. They don't usually publish them. If not in a very, very aggregate form, which is not really useful to researchers. I mean, once again, it's not strange, it's their business to do so. Other statistics are usually made up by other vendors, which is summed up by the Dilbert strip over there. Dilbert is the source of all of the wisdom in this world. What happens if you add the lies from marketing to the boss assumption and then factor in reality? Explosion. Stupid reality. And this is the title of a real three-letter vendor, huge three-letter vendor report. Surging viruses and worms targeting mobile devices and satellite communications anticipated in 2005. Hello, it's the end of 2007. Where are those satellite communications worms yet? They are not here. So basically, there's something wrong with these assumptions. Then there's the community efforts. First one, Internet Search Center. When you have something which shows up on the screens and you don't know what it is, usually the first place you hit for information is the Internet Search Center. Which is managed by SANS. It uses DShield, which is a distributed project for collecting raw logs of intrusion detection systems, firewalls, and so on and so forth. It analyzes tens of millions of log entries each day, and it has a lot of voluntary incident handlers, which are very experienced guys, most known in the information security circles, who add value to all this data which comes out. Arguably, the Internet Search Center is as good as an effort that we have managed to make until now as a community. It's the best effort that we have made. And of course, the data from the ISC has a huge early warning potential. The handlers are able to see a threat before the threat has been identified. But the problem is that they are not usually able to see the threat with enough time ahead to be able to actually counteract this threat. And it's just because the handlers, the handlers are humans, with some exception applying, but the ISC handlers are just humans. So, the problem here, I have listed on these slides a number of other initiatives that I don't have time to get into. They're all interesting. The KAIDA network telescopes, the Internet motion sensors by University of Michigan. They're all more or less the same stuff. So based on the idea of darknets or of analyzing routed but not really used networks in order to gather some data on what's happening on the internet. The limitation of all of these initiatives is that because of privacy issues, data that is gathered by the Internet Search Center, for instance, cannot be shared. And this is obvious, because some of this data could contain sensitive information. And people share data with the ISC because they trust the handlers and they trust SANS with this data. But they wouldn't trust SANS anymore if this data got published as a blog. So what you get from these types of efforts is usually just basic statistics about global current threats. So attackers are attacking this port, which may indicate that a new exploit is running around. It's a great service. It's excellent. The problem is that, for instance, in the case of SENS and ISC, the source is not controlled. So basically, you could have someone inserting willingly false positives inside the dataset. This is not usually a problem because there's such a huge user base that the false positive voluntarily inserted will get basically tuned out by the fact that no one else is seeing the same things. And as I was saying, handlers are humans with possible exceptions in the direction of demigod, but while skilled, this is a limitation for early warning capabilities because they can analyze the events after the events took place. So something more automated would be needed for real early warning. And the second problem, the real problem with this approach, is that the data they are collecting is lacking. In the sense that if you look at the ISC blog, or something that you probably routinely do, many times you see the handlers asking for submission of packet dumps or for submission of caches of malware because they can't actually capture the malware. They just see the traces in the logs, and then they have to ask people to voluntarily submit the malware, which is kind of a complication. And it leads to problems such as what happened on July the 4th this year, when people noticed that there was an oscillation of some kind in a deviation of global network traffic, with different packet losses and time to reach various points of the internet. And they noticed also a geographical distribution of this pattern of activity. I didn't insert the name of the researchers because I don't intend to bash the researchers. They noticed something and they alerted us that they noticed something. They did the right thing from their point of view. So I don't want to bash them with, an a posteriori review of what they've seen. At the same time, they noticed on DShield, on the ISC, that there was a spike on port 5901, which is VNC port. And since there was an exploit supposedly targeting VNC, distributed earlier, they made basic maths. There's a spike, there was an exploit, there's a deviation in normal traffic balance in some regions. There's a laking group in some regions which is attacking the regions using a new exploit on a vulnerability on VNC port. It's totally understandable. The only problem is that the exploit was against a VNC ActiveX control, so basically it was a client-based exploit, not a server-based exploit. ISC analyzed the spike on the VNC port and found it to be just a deviation, a statistical deviation with no real meaning. Jose Nazario used Atlas data, showed that the correlation between the VNC attacks and loss of connectivity or reported loss of connectivity was just not there. There was no time correlation. It was just, something happening more or less at the same time, but there was no significant correlation between the two. So we still don't know what happened or what didn't happen at that time, but we definitely know that the explanation of VNC correlation was wrong. Nothing bad here, but what if we somehow reacted to that? What if we somehow created a reaction for that thing? What if we thought that it was a worm propagating? We maybe shut down VNC connectivity at border gateway level, such as the providers did during the various SASR or Slammer wars. We would have disrupted significantly the ability of people to control machines remotely for nothing. So, what's the problem here? It's that what we need is data that can just come from honeypots. So data which actually captures what's happening, not just the ports where something is happening. And the successful project here is Project Honeynet. Project Honeynet is a great project, once again. Lance Bittner created something which is really